Schwäbisch Gmünd. Schwäbisch Gmünd German pronunciation ๊ʃvɛːbɪʃ Gmünd. Until 1934, Gmünd is a city in the eastern part of the German state of Baden-Württemberg. With a population of around 60,000, the city is the second largest in the Ostalb district and the whole East Württemberg region after Aalen. The city is a Große Kreisstadt since 1956, i.e. a chief city under district administration. It was the administrative capital of its own rural district until the local government reorganization on 1 January 1973. There are some institutions of higher education in the city, most notably the Pädagogische Hochschule Schwäbisch Gmünd, University of Education Schwäbisch Gmünd, and the Landesgymnasium for Hochbegabte State High School for gifted children. Schwäbisch Gmünd was a self-ruling free imperial city from the 13th century until its annexation to Württemberg in 1802. Geography. Schwäbisch Gmünd is situated within the northern foothills of the Swabian Jura Mountains on the Rems River, about 50 kilometers 31 miles east of the state capital Stuttgart. It marks the place where the Johannes Bach meets the river Rems. The municipal area comprises the localities Ortschaften of Bargau, Bettringen, Digenfeld, Großsteinbach, Herlikofen, Hussenhofen, Lindach, Richburg, Riedenhof, Wetzgau, Strassdorf, and Weiler. History. From about 80–85, the Romans built the Limes Germanicus to secure this border, i.e. a line of fortifications at regular distances, which included a small castrum on the site of the present-day Schierhof field in Schwäbisch Gmünd. A first major settlement in this area arose around the 2nd century AD, when Roman soldiers were deployed near the Upper Germanic Limes. From 223 onward, the border lines were assaulted and taken by the Alemanni, who settled down in the areas abandoned by the Romans. In the 8th century, a counterfeit document in the name of Charlemagne, prepared at the Abbey of St. Denis near Paris, mentioned a monastic cell called Gamundies built by Abbot Fulrad of St. Denis. Whether or not this refers to Gmünd is uncertain. There are no archaeological indications of a cell of this type in Gmünd. Gmünd was first mentioned in an 1162 deed issued at nearby Lorch Abbey, then under the rule of the Hohenstaufen Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. The self-proclaimed Stofferstadt achieved the status of an imperial city in 1268, which it held until 1802, when it was mediatized to the electorate of Württemberg. By the end of the 14th century, the name Etzel Castle was used for the remains of the Roman fort, which had been built to protect the Neckar-Odenwald border of the Roman Empire. In a Baroque chronicle of the city of Schwäbisch Gmünd, written by the councillor Friedrich Vogt 1623–1674, the castle was mentioned in ancient writings as Etzel Castle. Even at the time of Vogt, the Roman remains were cheaper than stones from quarry, and these were thus removed to the ground. Only parts of the moat would still be visible. The Demesne officer, wine expert, and archaeologist de Karl Gach 1776–1849, a half-brother of the poet Friedrich Hölderlin, suspected in 1847 that the alleged castle on the Schierhof Manor had probably once been a Roman fort. The first modern and scientific excavations took place under the guidance of retired Army Chief of Staff of the Württemberg Army, General Eduard von Calais, and by Major Heinrich Stamel in the years 1886 to 1888. i.e. before the Empire Limes Commission Reichslimeskommission had been set up. The so-called Schierhof castrum is now part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site Limes Germanicus. U.S. Army. From 1963 to November 1968, the United States Army's 56th Field Artillery Group, equipped with Pershing missiles, was headquartered at the Hart Kaserne along with A&D batteries of the 4th Battalion, 41st Artillery. Headquarters and Headquarters Battery then moved down the hill to the Bismarck Kaserne in November 1968. Family housing and the commissary were across the street from the Hart Kaserne and overlooked a hill above Bismarck Kaserne. There was a school for military dependents, kindergarten through 8th grade, within walking distance of the family housing. Teachers at this school were credentialed U.S. educators employed by United States Army Europe. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, there were also 2 local civilians employed to teach the German language Herr Jays and German song and dance Frau Napfel. The Hartkaserne, formerly Adolf Hitler Kaserne, which was finished in 1937 and used to train officers for the war, was later home to the 4th Battalion, then in 1972 reactivated as 1st Battalion 41st Field Artillery, Headquarters, BC and Service Batteries, Headquarters and Headquarters Battery 56. The brigade command had 4 additional support units, an aviation company, a signal battalion, an infantry battalion, and a forward support battalion. In 1986, the name of the brigade was changed to 56th Field Artillery Command Pershing. In March 1955, the 6th Field Artillery Battery arrived from Fort Bragg in C. This was an Honest John missile battery, a medical battalion, and the 567th Field Artillery Battalion 155 self-propelled of the 9th Infantry Division were already there. The 3rd Battalion, 17th Field Artillery, was stationed at Hartkaserne until late 1963. The unit's mission was reinforcing fire for the 7th Army Light and Medium Artillery units. The 8 M-55 howitzer SP was considered the most accurate weapon in the Army's arsenal. In 1957, the 2 Battalion 16th Field Artillery, 4th Armored Division was stationed in Bismarck-Kaserne from 1957 through 1962. Spring 2016 storm. On some of the last days of May 2016, a major storm that hit parts of France and southwestern Germany resulted in extensive flooding and damage to Schwäbisch Gmünd and the death of 2 people in the city. Notable structures. Schwäbisch Gmünd is home to many historically structures and buildings. These include fortifications and civic and religious buildings. City Hall. Sitting at the south end of the marked square there lies the City Hall. Before becoming the City Hall was the Debler Patrician House, and was originally constructed by city architect Johann Michael Keller. In fact, Dominicus Debler, remembered for his work writing the City Chronicle, spent his childhood there. However, in 1793, a fire destroyed much of the city between Kornhaus and the Klostro, leaving city leadership concerned for the safety of the old City Hall. The old City Hall Alts Rathaus was a thatchwork structure reminiscent of Kornhaus that stood between the Marienbrunnen and the present-day City Hall. Both the initial construction of the building and the conversion of the Debler Patrician House into the City Hall were undertaken by Johann Michael Keller. The old City Hall was deconstructed in 2 weeks, and the only remaining artifacts that can be found on the present-day City Hall are 2 of the bells on the bell tower and the clock face. The Holy Cross Minster. The Holy Cross Minster Heilig Kruis Münster is the city's main Catholic church. It stands on the site of a former, much smaller Romanesque church. It took about 500 years to be completed, though not consecutively. Initial construction began around 1325 under the leadership of an unknown master builder on what was left of the previous Romanesque church, the towers of which were still standing. In 1497, the south tower fell onto the north tower, which knocked over the north tower after a bow connecting the two was removed, and in 1515, all repair work was finished. The Church of St. John. Sitting on the southeast of the marked square, only 78 meters northeast of the City Hall, there lies a late Romanesque and Neo-Romanesque church called the Johannes Church, or Church of St. John, also a Catholic church. As the story of its founding goes, Agnes of Hohenstaufen was out hunting in the Rheinstall one day, and she lost her wedding band. She vowed to have a church built at the site where it would be recovered. Later, the ring was found in the antlers of a fallen stag at the site where the church now sits, and accordingly Agnes commissioned the construction of the church. A cannonball fired during the 30 years war 1618–1648 remains visibly lodged in the apse of the church. Institutions. The University of Maryland University College opened a 4-year German campus on the Bismarck-Kaserne in 1992, which closed in 2002 due to financial difficulties and a lack of students. Festival Europäische Kirchenmusik was established in 1989. In 2004, the state of Baden-Württemberg opened the Landesgymnasium for Hochbegabte State Grammar School for the highly gifted in some of the renovated buildings of the Bismarck-Kaserne. One of the oldest universities in the city is the Hochschule für Gestaltung Schwäbisch Gmünd, a design school established in 1776. The Pädagogische Hochschule Schwäbisch Gmünd, also known as the University of Education Schwäbisch Gmünd, the European Academy of Surface Technology East is a scientific and technological institute on surface finishing and electroplating, has its headquarters in the city since 1989. East grants annually the Schwäbisch Gmünd Prize for Young Scientists since 2017 in honor to the local tradition of craftsmanship of precious metals. Local industry. Since the 17th century, Schwäbisch Gmünd has been home to producers of gold and silver handicrafts. An almost forgotten craft was the so-called silver porcelain, metal porcelain, or silberbelegwaren. Today it is known as silver overlay, and Schwäbisch Gmünd was home of inventor Friedrich Deutsch, who began to decorate not only porcelain but also glass with this unique technique in the end of 19th century. All the important items which are dealt on the art market today are originated in Schwäbisch Gmünd. The city is also home to the Forschungsinstitut für Edelmetall und Metallchemie, an institute for precious metal work and surface technology. Other important industries include automotive suppliers like the steering division of Robert Bosch GmbH, manufacturers of machinery and glass, and a large subsidiary of the Swiss toiletries and medicine producer Welleda. Schleicher, producer of hand-painted toy figurines and accessories, was founded here by Friedrich Schleich in 1935 and run as a family-owned business until the end of 2006. Twin towns, sister cities. Schwäbisch Gmünd is twinned with Barnsley, United Kingdom 1971, Antibes, France 1976, Bethlehem, United States 1991, Székesfehérvár, Hungary 1991, Faenza, Italy 2001. Notable people. Public service, service. Peter Parler 1332/33 1399, architect and sculptor turned sculptor sculptor turned 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 Veit Warbeck c. 1490–1534, scientist and diplomat. August Franz Joseph Karl Mayer 1787–1865, physician, anatomist and physiologist. Robert von Ostertag 1864–1940, veterinarian and Emil Molt 1876–1936, businessman, social reformer, and anthroposophist. Hermann Weller 1878–1956, Indiologist and Neo-Latin poet. Alfred Haag 1904–1982, politician. Lena Haag 1907–2012, anti-fascist activists, 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 activists. Theodor Schwenk 1910–1986, anthroposophist, engineer, and pioneering water researcher. Karl Ramsayer 1911–1982, geodesists. Albert Berger 1913–1996, Luftwaffe officer and fireman. Hartmut Esslinger, born 1944, Industrial designer, 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 designer. Norbert Barthel, born 1952, politician. Michael Braungart, born 1958, chemist. Richard Arnold, born 1959, politician. The arts. Hans Judenkonig c. 1450–1526, lutenist. Jurg Ratjeb 1480–1526, painter. Hans Baldung 1484–85–1545, painter. Jacob Wohler c. 1510–1564, sculptor. Emmanuel Lutzi 1816–1868, history painter. Johannes Church 1817–1886, novelist and literary critic. Hermann Pleur 1863–1911, impressionist and landscape artist. Scape artist. Aaron Strobel, born 1958, lead guitarist for Münchener Freiheit. Sport. Hugh Messerschmidt, born 1962, track cyclist and road bicycle racer. Simon Tister, born 1982, volleyball player. Andreas Hoffmann, born 1986, footballer. Daniel Hagel, born 1989, footballer. Julian Grupp, born 1991, footballer. Karina Vogt, born 1992, ski jumper, gold medalist at the 2014 Winter Olympics.